Free agent Jack Flaherty announces he's returning to the Tigers. 2 years, $35 million with an opt-out. That's the guaranteed money. If he puts up 25 starts or more this season, the number would go to 2 years, $45 million. He gets 25 in his first year, which Ken Rosenthal pointed out is a top 10 starting pitching salary for 2025. And then year number two, if he kept it, would either be 10 or $20 million. The Detroit Tigers have their 1-2 punch. Kratz, remember we talked to Scooble about this. Flaherty was on our show recently and talked about this. We were bringing this up on Friday. They needed another top-end starter, and good for them. They ended up trading him away last season, getting a starting shortstop, a good prospect, and they brought him back.
Shows he made an impact. Not only did he make an impact, but he kind of reinvented himself. So whatever he had worked on in the offseason, talked about being healthy, going into last offseason, needing to, have a good bounce back, and he figured some stuff out. It's one thing to change things or figure things out in the offseason, but then you join an organization that you've never been with, and then allowing them to continue to build on that, continue to implement that, and it shows. I mean, he gets an opportunity to go back. I love the contract structure of this. I would obviously have loved to see him just get his flat $80 million. But maybe it could be, he has to kind of do a little more prove it year, one more here. But I like the structure for him. But again, I feel like the team's making out pretty well.
My thing is, didn't we have Tarek Skubal on, what was it, a week ago Saturday? And he said something like, man, we wanted him in a big game. And if we would have had him, we could have had a better chance to win the ALDS against those pesky Guardians. And
do you want to hear the clip?
Sure, let's hear it, because
okay.
It was kind of interesting.
Do you guys win the DS if Jack Flaherty doesn't get traded?
I saw this clip.
No, because we asked Jack.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I love Jack. He's a hell of a talent. That's such a. I would say, I mean, if there's a guy I want on the mound, that's not me on our team. I want him on the mound. Mm-hmm. I mean, last season was special. K per 9 was, I think, career high. Walks per 9, career low. That's kind of the formula, right? In the postseason, is you want guys that can miss bats and get you out of trouble. And you saw his starts. I think he only had one bad one. All the other ones were pretty dominant. In terms of who he is, and he was going through some stuff too. Physically with his body, and just him being able to take the ball every fifth day. You see the toughness that kind of guy has, and I think he has the respect of the guys in our clubhouse. And
well, two things off that clip. One, Derek Skubal wanted him back. He got him back. And then two, was it what he said about him going through some stuff physically to take the ball every fifth day that didn't allow him to get the money he was looking for? I mean, he would have thought he could have gotten to Kikuchi money, right? But, I mean, he got a nice one-year deal. He has another good year. He'll opt out and try again next year because, another prove-it year. But this is his second prove-it year in a row he's had to do now. So, I don't know. It's interesting. Good for the Tigers. Somebody on Twitter hit me up and said I'm going to say the Guardians and Royals are still better, and I asked him if that's what he wanted me to say. I mean, I think this puts the Tigers in a better spot because they don't win the division win one of the wild cards last year if Jack Flaherty doesn't have the starts he had the whole year. So, yes, could they have been better in the playoffs? Absolutely. But at the same time, this definitely will help them in the long haul for 162, especially if they don't trade him and they keep him again. And last thing before I throw it to you guys, does this open the door even more for Alex Bregman? Because the Tigers are putting more money into this. So does this mean a guy like Bregman could come in and kind of be the cherry on top to what the Tigers have done this offseason? They're not done. They shouldn't be done. Nice move for Scott Harris. But is Alex Bregman the cherry on top that can put them possibly even better in the division and in the playoffs race?
I think so. And there's a great quote tweet from Scooble when Flaherty was showing Scooble kind of playing to the crowd in Cleveland because he loves that stuff, just to be the enemy number one in an opposing ballpark. But anyway, those two really fed off each other in a competitive way. We do also have the clip of Jack Flaherty on our show maybe 2 weeks ago, if that. So let's run that too so we can hear what Flaherty had to say about his Detroit experience and also about if the Tigers would have advanced to the ALCS to face the Yankees if they had two starters instead of just one.
The Tigers win the American League if you're still on the Tigers? I know it's ifs and buts and all that stuff.
I wanted to stay in Detroit. We had conversations, and I loved it there, and I thought the combo of me and Scoob was incredible. And then you saw what they did, the run that they went on, even after I got traded, and they brought all those young guys up. Um, I think, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, they get to at least, you get to game 5 with Cleveland, and they got Scoob on the mound, and Lane Thomas puts one swing, and that's how the playoffs go. Um, is as crazy as it is. Do I think we win that series? Probably. We probably win that series and face the Yankees in the ALCS, which is crazy to think about.
All right, so I want to know, did Jack Flaherty get a qualifying offer this year?
No,
right?
he wasn't eligible
No,
because he got traded.
Because he
This
got
is a
traded in the
problem,
middle of the
AJ.
year.
I know where you're going. Yeah, he could get one
So
if
now-
he opts out.
Yeah, like that was my big thing is if he opts out, they can whammy him with a qualifying offer. So it's going to be real interesting this whole thing to see what he decides to do, what him and his agents decide to do. Let's say he goes out and has a great year. It's probably a no-brainer. But let's say he goes out and makes 25 starts and has a 3-ish ERA, a little over a 3-ish ERA and doesn't do as well as he did last year. It's going to be an interesting decision for Mr. Flaherty.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, he made some tweaks this year. He had an awesome season. I think I agree with you that the Yankees specifically screwed him over a little bit just because that deal was nixed based on them not liking the medicals for him as a rental. They, for the most part, proved to be wrong. He was pretty good down the stretch for the Dodgers. Had a few clunkers in the playoffs. Also had a few freaking dazzling performances in the playoffs. You saw the flashes of a 1, and you saw a 1-2 starter for most of the season. So, like Scooble mentioned, career best strikeout rate, career best walk rate. The velo was good. The tweaks that he made, so I'm looking back, up the curveball usage with the Dodgers, more slider, less cutter, just made some tweaks with the Tigers, who obviously did a great job with him, and they've done a little bit of pitching whispering, and then the Dodgers have their own model as well that does pretty well. The great Cody Stavenhagen, probably with no sleep last night, but still has the hair fresh. Where are you? No.
Is he at the mall? Looks like he's at the mall. Either that or he's got a really big house.
We're hanging out in northern Michigan, supposed to be on vacation, but the Tigers keep making me work.
You were like, you know what? I think I'll go away right before spring training. Offseason will be done. Hold up. The Tigers have been playing chicken with some of their favorite free agents. So let's start here. Is that what was happening with Jack Flaherty? He joined our show a couple weeks ago and said teams were checking in like, hey, how you doing? Do you feel like you want to maybe come down on price and join us? Do you think that's what happened here? And then obviously we'll get into the fun stuff. But how did the negotiation go down in your mind?
Yeah, I think this one kind of fell into the Tigers' lap, right? I mean, I would not have envisioned them signing Jack Flaherty at the outset of the offseason. Jack wanted 80, 90, $100 million. And with the way he pitched last year, I'm not sure that was unreasonable, but the market just did not materialize for him. I think when Jack and his camp realized that they had to come down in their ask, he obviously talked about liking his time in Detroit, wanting to come back. I think the Tigers were happy to have him if they were able to get him on a shorter term 1 to 2 year deal, which is what they got, one with or 2 years with an opt out after that first season. I think they're really excited to get him back and excited to get him back kind of with that lower term commitment, even though they're going to pay him 25 million next year.
Are they better? I mean, let's just get right to it. Are they better than they were last year? We just saw who they added. I mean, Gleyber Torres basically taking over what you thought Torkelson would give you coming off a 30 home run year. Like, are they a better team than they were last year at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, the way I'm thinking about that is like, I think the floor is a lot higher. This is still a really young team. There's still going to be some questions, but they lost literally nobody from their playoff roster. They had no free agents. They've made some solid acquisitions now. Look, if they were able to get that big all-star caliber bat, then you could start really feeling optimistic about this team. But there's some young hitters. Look, they may not all take a huge leap, but if a couple of them take a step forward, I think the floor is higher, and there's a world where they could be even better than last season for sure.
Cody, are they done? That's what I want to know. Are they done? Kahnle's a nice addition to the bullpen, a veteran guy down there. Gleyber, obviously. Alex Cobb, if he's healthy, which always seems to be a thing with him, can do some nice things. and then you throw Flaherty to back up Skubal. Are they done, or is there a little third baseman out there floating around that AJ Hinch knows very well that would slide in nicely at third base to play there for him, and Alex Bregman?
Yeah, I don't think they're done. I think right-handed bat is a priority one way or another. Bregman's obviously the big fish, and I think they've shaped a lot of their offseason around staying in the Alex Bregman pursuit. We're going to see what happens, and we can talk more about it. I think they have a chance, and even if they miss one Bregman, I'll be curious if there is a pivot, whether that's for a platoon guy like Randall Grichuk, or maybe you circle back to the Nolan Arenado idea. The plan A, I think, is to get Bregman. But there's a strong argument they need a right-handed bat, regardless, to really strengthen this lineup.
If they pivot to Arenado, is there a chance Arenado even says, "Hey, I'm cool with that"? Because he's kind of made it. You haven't heard anything.
No, I'm not even sure if the Tigers would circle back on that conversation. There was a time where I don't think Arenado had any interest in coming to Detroit. There's also a time where he didn't have interest in going to Houston, and now he might have to be open-minded or he's going to be stuck in St. Louis. So I think one of these teams that misses out on Bregman might circle back to Nolan, and if I were him, I'd be a little more willing to go elsewhere this time.
Cody, is this the Tiger strategy now? Kind of wait guys out? Because you said you never thought that Jack Flaherty would be back because the market didn't dictate it. So is this now the strategy that we've talked about this, a lot of teams are kind of like, oh, we'll just we'll wait players out until they kind of get into a mode where, hey, we'll take shorter term deals. Could this be the case with an Alex Bregman type where they're just waiting and hoping he'll come for a year or two and have opt-outs and give maybe a higher AAV, but make sure there's opt-outs bounced in there so he can try again next offseason or the offseason after that?
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are taking this strategy. I understand why that's frustrating for players. I think it's definitely a strategic move for the Tigers. Scott Harris, I just think he likes flexibility, really wants to make sure he's winning these deals, doesn't love long-term commitments. The Bregman thing might end up being a little bit different. I still think years could be a huge sticking point for Bregman or for the Tigers. Like, are they going to go 6, 7? I don't know. I think if they're willing to go 6 or 7 years, maybe this would have been done a long time ago, but they'd probably prefer to get him on a shorter term deal. But it's also like, I don't know if you're going to be able to get Alex Bregman for 2 years, 3 years. I mean, maybe it's 5 years with some opt outs in there. Maybe there's more. I think that might be the type of thing it takes to get Bregman. If the Tigers are willing to throw the right money on the table and structure the contract the right way, there's definitely a world where it can happen. We don't know what they're offering, but I get the sense they think they have a strong offer on the table. But I don't think they want to make like a 7 year, straight up commitment to a guy. And that's one reason that the Bregman saga has taken so long to play out.
Dang it, Javi Baez just is hurting the Tigers' chances of getting this. But where do they rank right now in this division with this Jack Flaherty move? Because as soon as Bregman signs, then we're going to ask you to come back on again, and we're going to listen to Tiger Territory to hear where they rank after they get Bregman.
Yeah, I think if they get Bregman, they're pretty clear AL Central favorites, and then you start talking like where do they rank in the American League as a whole? Yankees, Orioles, like who else would you put up there if this team adds Alex Bregman? That's, in my opinion, a pretty strong argument for the Tigers to go get that deal done right now. I think it's, them and the Royals. Like the AL Central's hard. The Tigers, the Royals look good. The Guardians always find a way to be competitive. The Twins had a terrible finish last year, but there's still a lot of talent on that roster. Tigers are going to be projected, I think, toward the top of this division. But you could still see a world where the lineup can struggle a little bit, and that's why I wouldn't quite declare them all-out favorites until they get another bat in there.
Cody, I want to ask more about Flaherty and how he's, bounced around a little bit the last couple seasons. So I'll start with AFAM's question in the chat. How come the Orioles traded away Jack and made it seem that he wouldn't go back there due to that? How come the Tigers, were not considered in that way? Did you hear that at all? That he wouldn't go back to the Orioles? I don't think that was the case. I never heard that.
Yeah, I don't know like the facts here, so I don't want to speculate too much, but I think he just wasn't quite a good fit. I mean, the back half of his year with the Orioles, he was finishing the year in the bullpen. Like, I don't think he was happy. I don't think he pitched as well as they wanted him to. He's a pretty different pitcher than 2 years ago when he was in Baltimore. I mean, he changed his delivery, he changed his usage. But I think kind of like just it didn't go well the first time he was there, and that might have made both sides a little hesitant to do that again. Whereas he pitched great for the Tigers loved him, he enjoyed his time there. It was very different situations between those two teams.
Yeah, I remember, didn't when we have Jack on, he just said it wasn't a good fit, I believe, and he said, not that he didn't enjoy his time there, but he just said it didn't work out. He didn't pitch very well. And he's like, I don't know that I would go back there. And listen, some teams just aren't fits for guys, right? He obviously said on here he loved his time in Detroit. Scooble said, hey, I loved him here to have my back in big games. So listen, he ended up in Detroit, place he knows well. He's in Lakeland right down the street. Maybe we can get him to come sit next to me instead of Scott. That'd be awesome one day. Maybe we can have him on one side, Scooble on the other. We could have a great show. Scott can sit it out. All right, Cody, maybe we could even have you come on. It's not that far. Lakeland to Orlando.
Yeah, but that's already a show. That's called Tiger Territory.
Yeah, we had Scooble on. He's great. That'd be a fun show, but we can't just kick Scott out like this. Come on.
Why not?
Thank you. I mean, you can. You can. If you guys have Flaherty, Scooble, and Cody on a show, I mean, I would say you could probably kick out AJ too. We really only have a 3-seat setup at Studio AJ, so we could just have those 3. But again, that would be Tiger Territory.
Why? It'd be great if they were all sitting here, Scott, and you were outside sucking your thumb.
So if they get Bregman, we can add Bregman to the mix. Take me out of it. The Tigers will be contenders on a national level. It can be the Foul Territory show. Never have been more nationally relevant in a long time.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I'm getting into it. You know, one of our regulars, D-Rod in the chat, says I'm being too hard on the whole Yankees situation from last year. What do you remember from it when they, were going to acquire him and then they essentially flunked the medicals for a 2-month stretch? I was critical at the time because I said, number one, you don't want to end up facing him in the World Series. They did. And I know there was a good start and a bad. And number two, I do think it hurt his stock. I think when there's a big market team that's always in the news and it gets public, however it did, that they were going to get him, but then they didn't want him because of his back, it does hurt his free agent stock. I don't think it was necessarily fair to Jack. And I know even if he was battling it a little bit, that it seems like he's okay. He pitched down the stretch.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with why he didn't get that 4 or 5 year deal he might have wanted. There's some concerns about his back. He's had some shoulder injuries throughout his career. He's never had a major surgery, but he had 2 injections in the back last year. And even though he pitched really well for the Dodgers, we saw it. He was a little more up and down in the postseason. The velocity started fluctuating a lot toward the end of the year. I think that gave some teams pause. Maybe even the Tigers. They weren't offering him 4 or 5 years. And there's an opt-out. He has to make 15 starts if he wants to make 20 million in year 2. Otherwise, he's only going to get 10. So that is structured in a way to give the Tigers like a little bit of risk protection. But you kind of have to like how this worked out for the Tigers. The Yankees nixed a deal. They were still interested in acquiring him, which is important to remember. They just basically didn't want to give up as much. There was a world on deadline day where it's like, are the Tigers even going to be able to move Jack Flaherty? Our team's going to be too worried about his back. Well, they got a top 100 prospect in Tyron Lorenzo. They got a shortstop in Trey Sweeney who helped them down the stretch last year and could play a lot this coming season. And now they got Jack Flaherty back, and he's like still eligible to receive a qualifying offer. I think this worked out better for the Tigers than I ever would have imagined at the time.
I remember that was a buzzer beater deal too. That was really, really late in the trade deadline game because I remember Dodger fans were getting a little bit irritated with their progress. I think it was Edman. There was somebody else that I'm missing, and they were like, that's it. We need a starter. Oh, right. Kopech. Yep. But I think Dodger fans were like, we are dropping starters like flies. We're in trouble. And it really helped them to pick up innings there down the stretch. And then, of course, have him with some postseason performances that were great. And then, a couple where, he didn't quite carry the load. All right. Cody, great to have you on, man. Appreciate the time. And we're excited to hear.
Scott doesn't pay attention. So read the
No, I did.
I
did. AJ, I did pay attention. I said everyone good. No one replied. I'm looking at the screen.
I did.
And
you
then,
check the text, Scott. Check the text.
It says 8 seconds ago, which is when I was saying bye. But okay, we'll bicker.
Producer lady replied, so that is not true.
Yeah, and it had said now it's been 22 seconds ago. But go ahead.
No, I thought you were going to read the tweet. Cody, he's
No.
out. You're in. All right, Cody. So you said you're on vacation in northern Michigan. What the hell do you do in northern Michigan besides freeze your balls off? I mean, seriously,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you live in Detroit. Why would you go north of Detroit to get colder? I don't understand.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to make other people happy. We got some wineries up here. I've not started the tasting yet today. Held off just for you guys.
Thank
So I'll
you.
check back
Although it
in a
would have been
couple
better.
hours for the real good content. Yeah.
Good. We'll have Cody again live in 4 hours on FT After Dark to hear how he really feels about Tiger territory and the moves that the Tigers made. But Cody, enjoy the time, man. Enjoy the break while you have it. And then, you'll be hustling tomorrow when they sign Bregman, okay?
Right, exactly. Hey, hopefully that doesn't go down tonight. But thanks for having me. It's a good time, guys.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. And there's Kieran Steckley, his co-host. The Tigers made a move. Those two fired up the mics. It's a Scott Harris victory lap. Kieran called it. All right, so go check that out. Of course, also Tommy Kahnle, a big addition to the bullpen for them. That's Cody Stavenhagen.